Look on your social media feeds. It's a bird. It's a plane. No, it's Krypton's Legacy, a Superman podcast, covering all of Clark Kent's greatest adventures in comics, film, and animation. With your hosts, Adam and Chris.
Welcome to Krypton's Legacy of Superman podcast and vidcast. As always, I'm your host, Adam, and with me is my co-host, Chris. Chris, how's it going?
Going pretty good. How about you?
Yeah, I'm doing good. I think this is our first Superman-related discussion between the two of us. I know we usually do Batman and you know, some Marvel stuff, but I think this is the first Superman-specific.
I think it is. I don't remember us talking Superman before. This is new.
I mean, we've talked Superman privately, but...
Yeah. Well, on air, I guess, or recorded.
Yeah. For the purposes of a sole recording, I think this is the first official one. And the reason we're here is because, yes, in theaters, there will be a new Superman movie. Probably by the time you're watching or listening to this, you've either already seen it or are getting ready to see it. Hopefully, everybody that's seen it on this show will end up loving it. But that's to be determined when we see it. I'll be one of the poor suckers that's waiting till the 11th because Amazon basically said, screw you people in Canada, it's not for you, as typically they do. And there's no other screening that I'm aware of. And I don't know about Chris's situation. I think you're also seeing it you're seeing it a day before me, I think, or...
I'm seeing on the 10th.
Okay, so the day before me, yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
I see it on the 10th.
All right, so I don't have to hate you too much. It's the people that are seeing it 3 or 4 days before me. All those people that went to the private screening on the Warner Brothers lot, I hate them all.
They're doing a couple of those. They've actually, so there was, I think, 2 nights of those or 2 days of those.
I think that shows confidence, though. That you know, I mean, the embargo is till the 7th or whatever, but...
Yeah, they can't say anything, but people have seen it. I believe most major critics have seen it, if I understood it correctly. Some stuff has come out about it as far as like reviews, but it's nothing like concrete.
No, what I've heard is mostly positive. And again, for everybody getting excited, listen, there are going to be people that review this movie that aren't going to like it, you know, so brace yourself for that fact. I mean, no movie is universally loved. I'm sure if you look on even the best rated, for the purposes of this show, DC movies, there are probably some negative reviews for the likes of, you know, everybody's, the best movie since. So I'm sure The Dark Knight has some negative reviews on its.
There are people that hate The Dark Knight. Yeah,
but specifically on like the Rotten Tomatoes or Metacritic, I'm sure there are negative reviews on there. There are not many, but I'm sure they're there. So, you know, for DC fans, brace yourself. It's not going to be 100% score anywhere on the board. So just prepare yourself for that. But I've heard good things from just the general things that are coming out from it. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I heard that I found particularly exciting is that it is sort of like a cross between Superman 2 on steroids and Superman the Animated Series. And if it can come somewhere in between either of those or both of those, I'll personally be pretty happy because there are elements of Superman 2 that I like more than Superman the movie. And I think Superman the Animated Series, much like Batman the Animated Series, outside of the comic books, is one of the best, if not the best, depictions of the character. So I would be a happy camper if that particular description is anywhere close to true about what the movie is. So I'm excited by stuff like that. The promotion is ramping up. You know, we're getting clips on talk shows and stuff like that. I don't know what have you gone full blackout in terms of?
Pretty much, yeah. I usually I don't watch clips of things anyway because without the context, I don't. I think it's harder to get it, and also, you know, when I watch the movie, I want to see it all in one shot. Sure. So clips don't really work for me. Sure. I haven't even seen the newest trailer that came out.
Yeah, I saw that on your on the DC podcast that you do.
Oh yeah,
I listened to to the episode the other day, and I heard that you didn't see the trailer. So
I still avoid it, even when it was playing. When I went to a movie the other night, it was playing, and I was just on my phone.
okay, that's fair. That's fair. Although that's harder to avoid because you can still hear the sound, and so it's
You got to be hyper focused on Twitter or whatever. That's usually how.
like, let's see who's yelling at who today while this trailer's playing.
That's basically how it works for me.
Which is very quick to discern. I mean, I will mention a clip if that's okay. If you,
Yeah.
So there was a clip of Superman based on their appearance of Holt and Corn Sweat on Kimmel.
Mm-hmm.
They showed a clip of Superman busting into Lex's office, demanding in a yelling fashion to know where Krypto is, or specifically where's the dog, which he's referring to Krypto. And Lex is very dismissive, saying, "I don't know what you're talking about." And Superman continues, where's the dog? And he's like, I really have no clue what you're talking. He's very, matter of fact, but also dismissive in that smarmy, jackass kind of Lex way. And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And then he takes a drink and he goes, under his breath, you can hear. He's like, you mean ugly dog with a cape? And then Superman throws his desk towards the window. And of course, because any clip from this movie gets a reaction, certain people were like, "Oh, well, Superman shouldn't be getting angry like that." To which I just want to point out, there's an actual comic page that, with the exception of the argument being revolving around Krypto, plays out pretty much virtually the same as this scene. So there is a comic precedent for Superman busting into Lex's office and yelling at him, demanding answers about something, and then tossing his desk. So for the people that say, well, Superman wouldn't do that, my only comment is, please read a comic that isn't The Dark Knight Returns, because they're out there and they exist, and Superman is allowed to have a personality.
I feel like, though, with Superman specifically, this doesn't really apply to Batman or most of the other popular heroes we've seen on screen or in comics, but I feel like with Superman, people build this image of him where he has to be a stoic figure. And I don't know where that comes from, because I think when you do that, you're shortchanging the character. There's a lot of warmth and depth and humanity to him, so it makes sense when, he's going to get upset about stuff. He might not, snap a neck or something all the time.
Well, I mean, no, there was only once that I saw him do that, but sure.
But you know what I mean? He's going to have these moments where he has to do things or heightened emotional states.
And I don't know where this stoic...
That's why I don't know either.
This stoic understanding of Superman came from, because, again, Superman, the animated series, he showed emotion. Lois and Clark, obviously.
Superman and Lois. Even Man of Steel, he gets emotional when he snaps Zod's neck. He's not happy about it.
Yeah, he yells out in frustration and cries out in frustration.
Right. Yeah. So I just don't get it.
And even when he confronts Luthor on the rooftop, and this is a scene that I never actually, one of the few I never had a problem with in BVS, was when he confronts Luthor on the rooftop and he's like, "You're lucky I'm taking you in without breaking you." I was okay with that line.
Yeah.
So, and he didn't say that. I mean, he wasn't screaming, but he wasn't saying it politely, like, "Let's go for an ice cream." Like there was some frustration there. So I don't understand this necessity for, Superman has to be stoic. I've never understood. Like, where is it coming from? Because again, it's not just the hardcore Snyder people, because the movie that they love has Superman being emotional and reactionary.
It's just the fandom as a whole or something. I don't know.
It can't be the Reeve people, because there's a scene where Lois dies in one, and then he bursts out yelling, and then turns time backwards. So I don't know where it comes from. Does it come from? It can't come from the people that love Injustice Superman, because even he shows anger and frustration. So I don't know where this is coming from. It's this weird situation that I just don't know where it emanates from.
I just don't get it. Like, I know he's been portrayed that way before. Like, we've seen it, we've read it. It's a thing, but I don't think it's the common version of him. It's not like, you can't make the exception the rule. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
And I feel like that's what a lot of people might be doing when they see this Superman. Like, I didn't see the trailer, of course, like I said, but I know there's that bit where he makes a joke, I'm doing stuff or something like that, and people are picking on that too. It's like he's got a personality. He's like,
but yeah, and again, read the John Byrne comic. Again, I point to the John Byrne comics, where he does make a lot of those kind of one-off, not one-liners per se, but one of those humorous kind of comments.
But he does that, I think, in all the books. Really, it's a part of him. He's kind of when he's Superman, he's more of a snappy speaker.
Yeah.
When he's Clark, he is quiet. And,
let's say, he's not quippy to the point of Peter Parker, but
no, he's not Nightwing, Spider-Man. He's not like
but he does have those moments. So I just like I said, I think I think whoever these people are, whatever sort of area their fandom comes from, I think you guys got to read more comics. I think that's what it boils down to, because I don't know where you're getting this tunnel vision approach to what Superman is or should be.
I just hope they give the movie a shot. Like, if it's not your cup of tea, that's fine, but you should give it a shot, see if you like it.
If you claim to be a fan of this stuff, you're doing yourself a massive disservice if you don't see this film. I don't know how anybody can claim to be a Superman fan, but then say, I'm not going to see this movie. I don't understand that logic, because, I want this movie, again, even though not everybody's going to like it, I do want it to do well enough that we get more of Superman, in addition to the rest of the DCU, but more of Superman specifically. So, yeah, I've liked pretty much everything I've seen. I'm getting excited. We'll see what transpires once we've all seen it and how the world reacts to it. And I will say one piece of news before we take a break and move on. But James Gunn has done apparently one of the press interviews he's done is with Brandon Davis, and in the snippet that Brandon Davis released, I think it's the full interview releases next week or something. But one of the snippets he released was he asked James Gunn how long it would be before we see Superman again, potentially after this film. And Gunn clarified, well, potential sequel or the semi-sequel or whatever it is James Gunn's working on, I still think it's world's finest, but that's just me. The semi-sequel, let's call it, would be a couple years away. But Gunn says you will see the character in another project before that. So what that project is, who knows? But it will be before. It won't be more than a 2-year wait before we see the character again. So that's good news.
Could be Peacemaker, could be Supergirl.
Yeah, again, or both. But again, provided that things go well, that's a good thing. It's something I like to hear as a fan of the character. That's pretty much it. We're not going to go over box office projections because that's all they are, and they range from anywhere between 95 and 165, and we're never going to know until we actually see we start seeing the preview night numbers, and then reviews will also impact that. So it really is a guessing game at this point. So to overanalyze it, I think is kind of foolhardy.
Yeah, the only thing that could be said right now is the tickets are selling.
Yeah, I mean, here's what we will say is, I think the pre-sale number is like 10 million or something.
I know it beat the Batman or something.
Yeah, Batman was 7.7 million, and this was 10 million. So
yeah, it beat the Batman.
Take that for what it is. But again, look, we're going to get an idea of what the box office is going to look like based off of the preview night number that comes out the Friday morning, and then obviously reviews and cinema score will obviously have an impact as they often do. So to over speculate, I think, is just a fool's errand at this point.
Yeah, I agree.
So we'll leave it there. But we will take a quick break, and then on the other side of the break, what the meat and potatoes of this show is going to be the newer iteration of Superman in comic books, which is Absolute Superman, and we're going to be reviewing the first 6 issues of that book. So stay tuned, and on the other side of the break, we'll come back and talk Absolute Superman. We'll be right back.
What's up, everyone? It's the Emerald Enthusiast. For all of your multiverse viewing and listening needs, check out our shows, which include Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Ghostbusters, Power Rangers, the Marvel Universe, and the DC Universe, including the Emerald Echo podcast. You can check us out on Podbean, and remember to subscribe right here on YouTube. That's the Multiverse Musings Podcast Network. From the first podcast to the last.
And we're back, and as promised, we're going to take a new look at, or our first look in terms of reviewing, at the newest iteration of Superman in the comic book world, which is Absolute Superman. You and I have discussed Absolute Batman quite a bit. And the same principle in terms of what Absolute Superman is applies. It's an alternate universe, a brand new universe take on Kal-El that is a universe born of darkseid energy, as opposed to the mainline DCU, which is pretty much centered on Superman's sort of energy and life force, and that sort of informs that universe. So it's a different spin on the character. I think it's even more. I'm trying to think of a way to sort of compare the two. Absolute Batman has a lot of differences from mainline Batman, to be sure. But there are far more recognizable elements to that Batman. This Superman, while there are also recognizable elements for sure, and sort of there are, even though they're twisted and altered, there are those signposts, if you will, that make a Superman story Superman. But there is more. This is more of a fresh, new look at Superman than the Absolute Batman is, in my opinion. That's not good or bad. That's just how I see it. What's your take on that assessment? Do you think that's fair?
It is. The thing for me is that Absolute Batman is still Batman. some of the things have changed, but he is still Batman. He still operates as Batman. Whereas this Superman to me is not Superman. I don't really get the Superman vibe from him at all. They've changed, in my opinion, so much of him. This might as well be a different character. Even though we do have like Lois is in it, Brainiac is in it, the Kents are in it. It doesn't feel like Superman. This feels like sci-fi hero number 7. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just they went really far for this one. Whereas like Wonder Woman,
Right,
I think
yeah.
after Wonder Woman is still Diana.
Yeah, I think Wonder Woman is probably the safest of the 3.
Yeah, Wonder Woman's pretty safe because she's still doing well. No, I'd say Batman is the safest. Actually, Batman to me is the safest. But
Interesting.
But the other characters generally have stayed in their sandbox. Superman has not. But also, we haven't really seen him fully formed yet. I think that's another thing. This book is moving, not to get too much into it so soon, but this book moves at the pace of a snail that's having a heart attack.
I will say though, it did read better reading the first 6 in one sitting as opposed to the monthly, 1 month and then wait and then read and then wait. Yeah,
and I don't think that's a good sign.
Well, I think it's just a sign of the way Jason Aaron writes.
That could be it too.
Because the same thing applies to TMNT, which I'm loving, but it reads better when you have multiple issues in front of you. Or maybe that's me just being impatient.
Well, I don't get that. I don't get that from TMNT, but I like when Snyder generally writes stuff. I think it is better to read it all at once, but more so because it's long.
Yeah.
This is you're getting like snippets of a story that don't really add up to me, but when you read it together, I think, like you said, it does work better.
One of the things that from this book that a couple things. So I will say that it does, while it is quite a bit different from mainline DCU Superman, I will say it does embody that Schuster and Siegel Superman, in the sense of he fights for the working class, the oppressed. Like that aspect is very much still there.
That's intact, yeah.
And he's a very much this Superman, probably because we're picking him up in, I would assume, his early 20s. He's a more rough and tumble Superman, much like the original Siegel and Schuster iteration. So that stuff remains, or is present in a remixed kind of way. I also really like the history and the destruction of Krypton and how that played out. I really like that stuff, especially the emphasis on the class system of Krypton.
Yeah.
And I love how it was remixed. In the sense of both Jor-El and Lara were earmarked for the Science Guild or Council, if you will, however you want to frame it.
The League, I think, is what they call it.
Yeah. But essentially the science,
Yeah.
the sciencey folk, the smart people. But they're very strong opposing viewpoints when they saw something that was wrong, or when the upper echelon weren't listening to science and they would call it out. That essentially got both of them kicked out of being eligible to be members of the Science League. And then they were both, quote unquote, demoted. Jor-El was essentially became a miner, like working in the mines. Not
He went back in time.
Minor, not. Hey, he's under 18, because that would have been not really weird because Clark kind of aged in the ship, or whatever.
Yeah,
But a little bit.
he's in there for a while.
It wouldn't have been that weird, but you know what I mean. A miner, as in working in a mine. That's what I mean. And then which allowed him to see firsthand what the hell was going on with Krypton, and that it was going to meet its end. Like it was a more hands-on way of discovering that in this than I think we've ever seen in any other iteration, where he's a scientist and, oh, look what I discovered.
Right.
And then Laura is essentially a farmer, a crop farmer kind of deal.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's kind of clever in the sense that, and it comes into play later when he does interact with this universe's version of the Kents. And I think it's Martha that remarks, you have the makings of a farmer's son.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I kind of like that because it retains that farmer boy element of Superman. I keep wanting to call him Clark, but he's not Clark in this version.
No, I don't even know if we're gonna get a Clark.
He's Kal-El in this version.
Yeah.
But so that aspect of it, I enjoyed. I enjoyed the that Jor-El and Lara were more involved in the physical action. Like there was the point where I think it was a day or two before Krypton's destruction. Jor-El brought his concerns to the Science League, and they refused him. They were going to arrest him, and then there was this whole, Lara gets involved to break him out, and there's this whole physical altercation, and they're involved, like they're physically involved. I really dug that. That reminded me a lot of Man of Steel, with Jor-El being more physical, and I actually liked that part of Man of Steel. So that aspect of it, I really liked in this book, and just to talk about the tech on Krypton and sort of the L's having the idea of, we're going to build a ship or ships that can at least get a portion of Kryptonians off planet. So it wasn't just, hey, we don't have time, we can only send our son away. They tried to save as much of Kryptonian people as they could. Like, I like that.
I like that a lot. I actually like all the Krypton stuff. Really. I think all the Krypton stuff is really good. I like that it was different. And this particularly I thought was cool because it shows that Jor-El and Lara were more about Krypton itself too, instead of just preserving Kal.
Right.
And I also like that they had the extra time to build this thing, which was cool.
Right. Yeah. And I also like that the suit had an element, like it was part Kryptonian AI. That's kind of cool.
I kind of on the fence about the suit thing. Soul. I'm a little on the fence about Soul.
Okay.
I don't hate it. I don't love it. I feel like it's a response to Iron Man or something in a way.
Like I mean, look. Ultimately, my preferred situation for Superman is the mainstream.
Mm-hmm.
Superman, and that it's either cloths from the blanket they put in the ship with him, or it's Kryptonian. It's Kryptonian clothing, right? It's just refashioned. But if you're gonna take a wild swing and change things up, this is a unique way to go about it, right?
It is unique. I'll give him that. The suit being alive and stuff. Yeah, that's unique.
Like if you're gonna my thing with the absolute or ultimate universes in the case of Marvel, my sort of advocacy of both would be, okay, well, if you're going to do it, kind of don't play it safe.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of appreciate that, even though it's taken me a while to get used to this Superman. Um, I like that they're going for something that is not just, oh, okay, we're going to cut and paste him, but then just tweak a minor thing, right?
I do appreciate that too, because I agree. If you're going to try like this kind of thing, you got to go for it. And they are. They really are, I think, in every aspect.
And one of the reasons why I think, like, I'm okay with. See, everybody thinks that because I have, let's say, lukewarm to negative opinions, on the Zack Snyder take on Superman, I just don't like different takes on Superman. That's not the case. To me, if you're the reason I'm okay with them going this far with Superman and the other characters in the DCU with this absolute universe is because they're not saying this is the new DCU and this is the only version of this character that's around. So like I'm okay with this Superman because I can also read normal DCU Superman.
Mm-hmm.
Like nobody, he's there, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can turn to one of his books at any time. But when you make a movie, right? Let's say in the case of when Christopher Nolan's Batman was around, that was the Batman, the in continuity movie Batman. That was
years,
it.
Yeah.
There was no other version of Batman. So either I liked it, which thankfully for the most part I did, I really liked it, or hey, you're shit out of luck. Go back and watch the DVDs of the Burton Schumacher era, which also I did, because I like those too. But and with Man of Steel, BVS, and Justice League, right? I mean, that was the public perception of Superman in that medium for a decade.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the reason why my issues came about was because, okay, you're telling me that had that universe been able to continue, we would have seen, hey, Superman's going to go evil, like he's going to get even more miserable, and for an entire movie before we. So like there's reasons why. Like had there been another Superman, had the DCEU been operating and they made, let's say, a one-off Elseworlds of a 1938 version of Superman that was very Siegel and Schuster, I'm like, cool, there's another take, whatever, bring it on, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or Superman and Lois was around at the time and it was its own thing. So cool, but so again, I have no issues with somebody presenting a different version of these characters, provided that it's not the only one in that particular medium at the time. So that this way, if there's something for everybody to like, out there in the universe. So that's why I'm like, try whatever you want.
I think in comics it's easier to try different things too, especially when you're doing it like this. You can experiment and do whatever you want.
And going back to the destruction of Krypton aspect, I thought it was even more emotionally heartbreaking.
Mm-hmm. It was. Clark's older, Kal-El's older. So.
Kal-El's older. He was this close to being with his parents, but then they were separated in the course of the explosion. But he also literally, at an age where he could understand, witnessed the destruction of his home planet. Whereas when he's a baby, and sure, could that have left emotional scars on him? Deep down. I'm going to pretend I'm a therapist analyzing a fictional character. Sure, it's deep down. In that baby subconscious, there's probably some trauma there, right?
Abandonment
But
trauma. Yeah.
yeah, I think it's far more evident here than than in the mainstream DC line. So I found it very much more heartbreaking to watch this destruction of Krypton than mainline DCU.
I thought it was more interesting. And also, I would compare it to Man of Steel as well because you got a lot more out of that
Yeah,
destruction of Krypton. You kind of care about it more. And
yeah,
I think here, like, they give you a lot to chew on, maybe even too much because it takes a while to get away from Krypton in this version. But I really enjoyed all of that. I thought it was cool. I liked that. I like seeing the technology, like you mentioned earlier. I also just like seeing the way that it was structured and the way it looked. It was
yeah,
very cool.
yeah. But, like Krypton was very unique in the sense that it had a visual tapestry going on. Whereas, yes, there was the crystalline look, but there was also other things as well.
It resembled Earth a little bit more. Like even when you get into the Redlands, which is where Kal-El was from, it
Right.
was like the farm. It was like Kansas, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I thought that was cool, and I think aging him up was the smartest thing they did in this whole thing.
yeah.
Having him as an older kid when all this goes on,
It adds to the perspective,
it adds a lot to the perspective. Yeah,
and
and
all.
I
Yeah,
think it
go
has a
ahead.
more purpose too.
Yeah, absolutely, and it informs you why his attitude, why his behavior, as we see him older, as Superman,
Hmm.
why he is the way he is, right?
Yeah, I think that's cool too. It informs who he becomes right away.
And part of it is part of the way he is and who he becomes is also his minimalist or his minimal amount of time, I should say, that he had with the Kents.
Hmm.
Um, he did land on Earth. He did land on the Kent farm, but he was a teenager, late teens.
Yeah, I think he was a teenager by that time.
Saul had been damaged, so he didn't have access to understand what they were saying to him. Because he had just landed on Earth, his powers were on the fritz.
Hmm.
To the point of he develops 106 fever, faints. Martha and Jonathan are nursing him back to health as best they can. But throughout the course of that sort of sleep/coma that he was in, because he's being exposed to so much sunlight, his powers are going haywire. So, like, as they're trying to bring down his fever and take care of him, his heat vision is going crazy, destroying the barn. All of a sudden, he develops super speed and starts running through. He runs through the farm and so he causes a lot of destruction, not by any fault of his own, just by um, his powers sort of uh, taking life, taking shape, if you will. Um, the In spite of all that, I really did like how the Kents still were kind to him, took him in.
Martha was kind. Jonathan was kind of like, I don't know
Jonathan
about
was
this.
he was standoffish, but he still acquiesced, and I mean, think about it from his perspective, rightfully so. I mean,
Yeah.
his wife's trying to take this kid's fever down, and next thing you know, he opens his eyes and there's heat blasts emanating from them that almost burn his wife and his house down. So, I mean, it's not like that reaction is unwarranted.
Yeah, he was right, I would say, but it's just kind of strange to see it. I think it's the first time we've seen an origin where he does arrive there as a teenager. I
Yeah,
don't think this has been done before.
and I like the fact that like her perspective is they still kept with the whole she can't have children. She's lost
Hmm.
children at some point, I guess, in the process of pregnancy or whatever. And so her wish is still, I wish we could have a kid of our own. And then, bang, this teenage uh, individual
Teenage Mutant
lands.
Alien.
Yeah, exactly. And she equates him to an angel. Like her perception of him is he's an angel because look at the powers, look at this thing, right? Um, so I thought that was interesting, but I think their reaction is like it just shows you the kindness of the Kents when you see how Lazarus Corps and the Peacemakers react to him, like when they come and get him.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought even that separation was heartbreaking because just before that, Saul had come back online and he downloaded the English language and was finally able to communicate with him and with the Kents. And I think there was a nice, a touching exchange between Cal and Martha and Cal and Jonathan. And then next thing you know, he's taken from him.
I didn't really like that. I don't think there was enough time with the Kents to.
Oh, I agree. There wasn't enough time. I just meant that I think it was more. I think him being taken,
Or them trying to take him.
or trying to take him is again another aspect of heartbreak for this character that informs.
Yeah, it's another horrible situation for him. I agree, but I think there needed to be more time with the Kents because he's only with them, I think, for a month ish.
Right. And
He's in a coma for most of that.
And he even says that was the longest he's ever stayed in one place.
Mm-hmm.
And even though it wasn't home, it felt like home.
What are you doing?
But I think that what was important to me about that was it showcases, even in the limited time that he has with the Kents, how important the Kents are to making the Superman that we're used to who he is. Like the minuscule amount of influence they had on him, or the lack of the Kent influence on him,
Mm-hmm.
informs who this version of Superman is. So even though we don't see them a lot, I think it highlights the importance of the Kents in his life.
I don't know. I think for me, I got to see this play out because I don't think he was there long enough. I think that he recognized, oh, this is like home, and I get that part of it.
Yeah.
He recognizes that they're decent people. That's cool with me. But I just didn't get the connection.
No, yeah. What I mean is that lack of connection is really informing how important the Kents are to the overall story of Superman.
Oh,
what makes them? Yeah, that's what I'm trying to get at.
Sorry.
If it wasn't clear, that's what I meant. So it'll be interesting to see if he's able to reconnect with Martha, even though she's. I mean, there is a scene in another issue where he kind of does interact with her, but she's in present day. She's in a nursing home. I think having a spot of dementia or something.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see if he gets to. He does have a scene with her. I hope he gets a little bit more time with her in the coming issues. But then he takes off, right, and mostly to spare the Kents any damage or harm is why I think he takes off from the scene. And then the present day stuff, the way he sort of comes and goes and is sort of in the shadows, trying to steer clear of people but help at the same time. It kind of reminds me, and this is going to sound like an awkward comparison maybe, but it kind of reminds me of like the Bill Bixby, Lou Ferrigno Hulk.
Kinda. Yeah, kinda.
Where he's like, I'm gonna get in and help out without doing any damage or as little damage as possible.
I can see that, yeah.
Like all that's missing, and it's funny because in my head, in certain scenes, in the first 6 issues, I was kind of humming. Like there's the scene where he's in Brazil and he's talking to the miner before he actually goes and helps out.
Mm-hmm.
Where like I'm humming the friggin' theme from the Lonely Man theme from the,
Yeah.
as I'm reading, I'm humming the theme just because it's in my head. Um, so so I got a lot of that vibe to it, and I what I noticed about, as I mentioned earlier, is when he's, because the Lazarus Pit uses peacemaker agents to kind of keep law and order and keep
Mm-hmm.
their workers sort of under their thumb and under their control. Um, and I'm guessing this is part Soul as the AI who's tasked with protecting him, more so than Cal. But there really isn't a filter to say, okay, do as little. I mean, I guess with Cal there is, but when Soul gets involved to protecting him, it's like the handcuffs are taken off, and Saul isn't really concerned with not hurting the
Mm-hmm.
people he's defending Cal from. Like there's one, like those peacemaker agents take some damage. Like they're
Yeah, I don't know how concerned Soul is with human life, but it's not like Soul's telling him to kill anybody. But at the same time, there's not really a lot of restraint there.
no, but I think I keep wanting to call him Clark. I think Cal does have that restraint because he even says when at first when he's looking for Christopher Smith, which is one of the peacemakers, obviously. Um, um, he decides that he doesn't want to find him after a while
Yeah.
because he's like, I'm not sure I'll be able to stop myself from killing him. So there is that. I think Cal does have concern for human life.
Oh, did I say Cal? I meant
Yeah,
Soul.
you said Saul. No, you
Oh,
said
okay.
Saul. But I think there's a battle between Cal and his AI
Hmm.
during the action scenes of like, okay, how much do I let loose here? Like, and
Hmm.
it's because like the heat vision is not something that I think Soul controls. I think it's Cal that does that. So my thing that I'm still trying to wrestle with this version of Superman is how much of the powers are controlled by him and how much are controlled by Soul.
I
Is
actually hadn't
something
thought about that.
is something that I'm still not clear
I,
on.
I think only the dust cape is Soul.
The dust cape is Soul, and like the fact that it's a little creepy, a little morbid, but also kind of cool at the same time. The dust is part of like the ashes of Krypton.
That's something I do not like at all. Actually,
Like that's some weird. It's some weird stuff.
it's
Uh,
very odd. I don't think visually it looks good either, and the way it works, like it's a moving character sort of thing,
yeah,
like a symbiote almost. I don't really like that. I don't like the cape at all, the dust cape.
but I do think it provides an interesting for this Superman who is relegating himself to staying in the shadows at this point. Uh, it makes it interesting a way for him to like conceal himself
Hmm.
and sort of get in and help without being
That
seen.
that is a cool thing about it. So I guess I like it when it's not a cape. I like the idea of the dust being like something
Like
like
it's
that,
it's got like a Batman vibe where he dispenses some
smoke
gas
or
to
something.
conceal smoke to conceal himself. It's got that kind of vibe to it. So I'm like, all
Hmm.
right, that's kind of cool. But the fact that it's the dust of dead people from Krypton is kind of like
Yeah.
weird. Like what do we like? It's like where's Paul Bearer and the urn? Like it feels like something's missing there.
And where does the dust go when it's not out?
So now every time I read this, now that I said that about the urn and Paul Bearer, I'm just going to imagine that Soul sounds like Paul Bearer is what I'm going to imagine every time I read from now on.
I think you ruined that for the both of us now.
So when I read issue 8 or 9, you can just imagine me doing Soul in Paul Bearer's voice and do with that with what you will. So yeah, it's kind of like there's a cool element to it, but it's also kind of weird. And you're right. Where does it go when it dissipates?
Like I like the suit itself. I think the suit itself is very cool. It kind of reminds me again of the Man of Steel suit, especially with the muted colors.
Right, but you know, now that you mentioned the suit, you know what it also reminds me of? It reminds me of the J.J. Abrams McGee era, production with the art, like the fact that it's armored and
yeah, I could see that.
So it's like these Absolute comics are at least taking discarded aspects of Superman movies that never came to be, and twisting them and using them in their own way, which is, I guess, hey, that's a way to get use out of them, I guess.
Let's see him fight a giant spider.
Oh well, it wouldn't surprise. I mean, he did in Birthright, kind of.
Kind of, yeah. It's kind of.
So I mean, there was that. I like that. Lois is really interesting to me. Working for the Lazarus Corps.
Yeah, I like Lois.
Because her being, an officer, an armed forces kind of person, makes sense given who her father is.
Yeah.
But she still has that drive, that yearning for the truth. Like, she doesn't take the BS that the Lazarus Corps tries to sell at face value. She's always questioning.
She's still Lois.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like with Lois's characterization, the way they're writing her, it's still Lois.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why I like this version so much, because it's familiar. Yeah, they've changed the setting and her job, but she's still there.
And when she first meets Superman, she quickly realizes that, okay, this guy's not really the enemy.
Mm-hmm. She realizes that very quick once he starts helping out and stuff.
And then she wants to, in fact, help him as well.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a moment where he saves her from an explosion in a fight with the Peacemakers, who technically she should have command over, but they don't listen to her.
It's good. It's by any means necessary to bring the Superman in,
Yeah, and so, but where he saves her and flies off with her, so they still have that flying scene, version of the flying scene with Superman and Lois.
Yeah,
which is kind of interesting. So I like that aspect of it. And the thing about where she's writing the report, and in this universe, there's like a Brainiac program that automatically writes it up for you. Like, you tell it what happened, and it comes up and often twists it to make it even sound worse or harrowing than what it actually was. That's why Christopher Smith is so messed up, because of the Brainiac, the reliance on the Brainiac tech.
Mm-hmm.
But I like that Lois is like, no, I'm not using that. I'm going to write my own report. And so that writer's instinct, that writer's thing is still in her, right?
It's Lois.
And even young Clark, when he's young Cal, goddammit, there is no Clark. When he's back on Krypton and wants to do a school report, like, he doesn't want to use the Kryptonian records and Kryptonian version of Chat GPT or whatever it is.
Yeah, that's what it is.
He wants to write his own thing. So that those instincts are still within them. So I like that aspect of it. I really don't. I'm still kind of. So at the very end, I mean, and Jimmy Olsen is working for the Omega.
Which, I don't know about you, but as soon as I saw that character, I was like, okay, that's Jimmy.
Oh yeah, he's still very Jimmy Olsen.
Yeah, you can spot that one. Like, oh, okay, of course that's Jimmy.
Like his attitude, his demeanor, even though he's put in a more quote unquote badass position.
I saw the hair and I was like, oh, that's Jimmy.
No, but even like when he talks, he's
Yeah.
still like his demeanor. Forget about his look. His look is classic Jimmy, but his demeanor is still Jimmy, even though he's supposed to be this badass Omega Man kind of agent or whatever.
Which I liked.
I like that they kept.
I like the way those Omega Men people looked. Like
they
their
look
mask,
pretty
that
cool.
was cool.
They look pretty cool. And again, the fact that both he and Lois are out to help with Superman, help Superman, I think is a way of keeping that classic dynamic.
But and he gets the picture.
Right, but putting a spin on it, right? So
I like that a lot, actually.
Yeah, I did like that. I still don't know what to make of Brainiac. Like, how involved is he? And then even more out of left field is the fact. And I mean, I should have put two and two together right away, but it took until they actually mentioned his name. Like I had thought about it, but I was like, no, they're not going to do that. I mean, it's Superman. What are they going to? But the head of the Lazarus Corporation is Ra's al Ghul, however you want to say it. And he and Brainiac seem to be in league with each other. That threw me because I'm like, yeah, but he's a Batman villain. I'm confused.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't dislike this reveal. I thought it was neat, and again, you're retooling the characters, so sure, why not?
But so let me ask you, did you put, when you read Lazarus Corporation, did you immediately say, oh, Ra's or Raz?
I assumed it would be tied to the Al Ghul somehow. I didn't expect a direct, oh, Ra's is the head of this thing.
Now, Scott Snyder did say that Ra's will meet Batman and other characters. So.
Oh, okay. I'm curious how that's going to work then.
That will come because at some point they're all going to come together.
Well, with Ra's the head of Lazarus, I mean that puts them in a different.
Like, I'm assuming a Trinity or Justice League book is eventually going to come down the pike.
Yeah, that's coming. I think they said as much. Just don't know. They're not rushing to it. They're building it out first, which is smart, I think. Like Snyder said, they have 32 issues of Absolute planned already, and they're still going.
Yeah, and so it's going to be interesting. But yeah, I'm really curious about the connection between Ra's and Brainiac and who really is in charge here. That's intriguing.
And I wonder where Lex is, and if Lex is gonna. But what if?
Oh
Lex
my God,
Batman
we haven't even seen Lex yet. That's a good point.
What if they move Lex to Gotham and switch him around? That'd be kind of something.
Well, that would be interesting because I like the dynamic of. Well, okay, it'll be a different dynamic because this Batman is not rich.
Yeah, this one is a different beast, but I think it could be interesting if you.
So he may. I mean, can you imagine him resenting Luthor for the fact that look at all that money you have and look what you use it for, right?
That's why I think if you're going to give Superman Ra's, which is one of Batman's main antagonists, give Batman Lex. Let's see how that works. But I guess with Joker, we already kind of have a Lex figure in Gotham, sort of. The way they're being, the way they're.
Yeah, and then it's going to be very interesting to see. It's going to be very interesting to see the Joker dynamic as well in Absolute Batman. We talked about that, about how that's going to be different because apparently he's got money. So
I like seeing the spin on the villains so far and all the absolutes.
Yeah. So I mean, look, we pretty much covered the 6 issues in the sense of where they ended at. I really like the action in this. The sci-fi aspect is really cool. Like the Kryptonian sci-fi is an interesting spin because I almost find that sometimes in mainstream continuity the Krypton tech is almost too tame, too pedestrian sometimes.
They don't go too far into it, I think, because I guess if you do really get into the weeds of the Kryptonian tech, it kind of asks the question, well, why doesn't Superman have more stuff?
Like I'm assuming the Superman movie will go more into it because it's very
It seems like it.
Silver Agey and all that. So we may get more advancement with the Krypton tech and stuff in that movie. But
More
in terms of the comic books, sometimes they can make Kryptonian tech a lot more tame and
Mhm.
almost Earth-like and pedestrian in a way. So I really like that it's big and bold and different in this, and it's really sci-fi. So I like that aspect of it. Like I said, the action all look cool. The art is phenomenal. Like Rafa Sandoval can draw. Like
Mhm.
he's great. Um, I like the fact that the elements of the Siegel and Schuster Superman are there in terms of his the people he protects and his more like more being more when he fights he's more of a brawler than hey I'm trying to go easy because I don't want to hurt people. Like
Yeah.
he's more of a brawler. Like so because let's not forget the old school Superman used to dangle people off buildings and threaten to drop them to get him to talk. So he wasn't all Mister Nice Guy all the time. So I like that aspect. But in saying that, it has taken a little more time to get used to this version of Superman. Whereas Batman, I just accepted it and jumped in
Mhm.
far more quicker. But again, I still really enjoy this and I'm intrigued. And again, I just think it's a case of the reason why they're so different in terms of like the Absolute Batman and Absolute Superman is I think the Absolute Batman kind of had a formed idea of who he was and wanted to be,
Mhm.
whereas this Superman really doesn't even know himself or what he's supposed to be or who he wants to be. So he's finding that out or he's discovering that as he goes along, and that's why there's such a striking difference, I think. But again, it still remains very interesting. Like there's a lot of things that I read here that I didn't expect going into this book,
Mhm.
and I'm
It's
still very much intrigued to read more.
I think it's the more surprising of the initial Absolute books in
Yeah,
terms of what's different, I think. Because if you look at like Wonder Woman, I think the biggest difference is the hell thing.
yeah, that pretty
That's
much.
kind of the biggest thing. And
Otherwise, she's pretty much yeah,
there's a couple other little details, but her being raised in hell is quite a detail. And
yeah,
with Batman, the big detail is Martha's alive and he has no money. Those are the big things. With
yeah,
Superman, there's a list of different stuff,
yeah.
and it just makes it a different beast entirely.
Did you
There's
say list?
I did.
I got no reason to use the pen today, folks. No.
Uh, no, I don't know. Maybe. um, but Superman. There's things I like about it. There's things that I am very interested to see how they play out. But there are negatives for me. I think the pacing is terrible. I think when you read it together, it does work better. But when you're waiting monthly to read this, I think they need to do more, in my opinion. And I
Yeah,
think also as part of the pacing and the way the story is structured, it took really long to get where it was a 6-issue origin essentially.
right. And the only thing that it was a non-linear
Yeah.
otherwise it was like that's why I kind of as I was giving a description of things and we were talking through them, I kind of did the regular origin structure because it essentially was an origin. Things were just in terms of like you were jumping from
It was like the
kind of
Nolan approach to
yeah
origin.
yeah. So I just kind of sanitized it and made it when we discussed it. I discussed it in sort of a three
Right.
act.
Right, because if you discuss it as is, you gotta zigzag around a lot.
Yeah, yeah,
And because of those story chunks being the way they are, it makes it harder to process it as a whole, I think.
yeah. I agree.
Um, and again, that's just the way the story is structured. I think if it would have been structured as the straight origin in a row, I think it might have worked better. I don't know if you feel that way.
Yeah, having kind of distilled it in that way, like I said, I think reading all six helped a
Mhm.
lot because it really comes like when you're reading a monthly, you kind of lose sight of the fact that it's at its core an origin tale.
Mhm.
Whereas when you read it in one sitting, it's like, okay, this is an origin tale. It's just got the Batman Begins structure to it.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um,
Like
so
I
yeah,
think a volume one of this would be great. Whenever they release the hardcover, I'm sure it's going to be great.
yeah. So, but I mean, I guess we can go ahead and give it a score in terms of when we do comics, we do out of five for story and out of five for art. So, what would you give the story and the art?
Art gets a 5.
Mm-hmm.
Story, I kind of just want to give it a 3, but I'm between a 2 and a 3. I think because, like I said, there's things I like, things I don't like.
Okay.
So, but I'll just say a 3. That's fine.
Okay. For me, story, I'm going to give it a 3.5. And the reason is there's more that I like than don't.
Mhm.
The biggest issue for me is the pacing.
Yeah.
That is the biggest issue. And it feels like they're in the mentality of writing for the trade.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
And I think that's just the way Jason Aaron writes his stuff.
Hmm.
Because I'm looking forward to sitting, I mean, I've read them, but for example, I'm looking forward to sitting down and reading those first 5 TMNT issues in one sitting and just be like, okay. Um, and I like the single issues, but I just think with Jason Aaron stuff, I think it's even better when you read it in one sitting.
Hmm.
Um, so I think that's just the nature of his writing. So 3.5 for the writing and the story. For the art, it's a 5. I mean, the book is beautiful.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, I mean, so you seem to be at around a 7 or an 8, and I'm at an 8.5. So still really good, even though it was a book that wasn't perfect and has issues.
It's still good.
But again, I'm very intrigued to read more. And
Hmm.
at the end of the day, I guess that's the goal, right? So uh, we'll see where it goes. A lot of interesting things to yet discover about uh, this Superman and the eventual meeting of this absolute DC Trinity is going to be something very unique and interesting, I suspect. So I'm looking forward to that down the road. But that pretty much does it for this episode. Chris, thanks for joining me on this one. Um, where can people track you down to hear your thoughts and takes on superheroes and James Bond and all other manner of geekdom, I guess?
If you want to follow me on Twitter, it's that Chris70. I do a bunch of different bullshit. You can find it all there.
Awesome. You can find me at Adam_Leafsfan. I'm also on Blue Sky, Instagram, and I'll put some of those links in the description. We have a Facebook group. The link for that will be in the description. If you want, you can click the link to the Facebook group, and I'll add you there. And we can continue the conversation there. But until next time, remember that Absolute Superman is forever. From the first time him and Soul tag team and take down a bunch of Peacemaker agents to the last. So long, everybody.